But there's a problem here that the behaviorists will point out, and that has to do with this other issue here of observation. When we're trying to establish these correlations, all of the correlations have to take into account and only be taking into account things that are in principle observable. Science is committed necessarily to correlating observational phenomena. And so what we have here is a big and huge problem. The problem is this. If we look at all of the stuff at A, all of those things are in principle observable from a third person, disinterested, objective, externalized, scientific perspective, however we want to characterize it. All of the stuff that's going on in A is in principle scientifically observable. If we jump over to this side of the equation, the same thing holds. All of the actions, all of the behaviors, all of the physiological and physical responses that a human organism will engage in, all of those are in principle observable, detectable, measurable, and so forth. But it's different when we turn to B, anything that is going on here. And the problem is that in principle, none of these things is observable scientifically. Right? I cannot see or observe what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and the same thing holds for you right now. There is no observable scientific method for you to figure out right now what I'm thinking about. Test. You can't do it, right? Even if you were right here in this room right now, you would not know that I was thinking about my second grade teacher. I don't remember her name right now, but her face is quite distinctive right at this point here. So that particular memory, I was thinking about that at that point here, that's in principle unobservable to you. So the problem is going to be that everything in B is unobservable. Okay. And this is a big problem, a very big problem, because if we're trying to do a science of psychology, it seems like if it's about anything, it's about everything that's going on in B. But if a science has to be about what's observable and everything that's going on in B is not observable, then in principle it's not possible to have a science of psychology. And so the argument that the behaviorists will make against the standard model is that the standard model is dead in the water. The standard model, this way of thinking about the approach to the science of psychology, is going to make the science of psychology impossible. Well, we might say, okay, well, maybe we can fudge it a little bit here. We can say, all right, maybe everything that's going on in here in B is not observable from a third-person perspective, but if we want to get the data, if we want to know what people are perceiving, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're remembering, and so on, we'll just ask them. So then there will then be a question, and I'll put it this way here. Is it then going to be a possible solution? Which would then be just to ask people for first-person reports. You want to know what I'm thinking? Ask me. Right? Write that down in your lab book, right? And so forth. Now, the behaviorists want to reject this as a possible solution because they'll argue that first-person reports are unscientific, unreliable for a whole variety of reasons. One obvious problem here is that in many cases, if you put it to first-person people, what they're saying, what they're thinking, they'll simply lie to you. We also know that lots of people will be embarrassed about various things. If we're trying to get inside their heads and ask what they think, feel, and so forth about important things, well, people get shy, they get embarrassed, and so they're not going to be very forthcoming, and so the data is not going to be very accurate. We also know that people are, in many cases, very poor introspectors. Let me get the spelling correctly here. You ask them what they're feeling, and they'll say, I don't know. Right? If you put it in terms of stereotypes, this is kind of the standard complaint that women have about a lot of men. Please tell me what you're feeling. And the guy says, I don't know what I'm feeling. Right? They just don't have the introspective skills that have developed here. Or if we think about children, we do know that in many cases, children, it's a very long learning process for them to be able to reflect on what's going on inside their psyche, so to speak. I remember knowing one little girl, I think she was about 4 years old at the point, and I saw this myself, but her parents also told me about it. She, for the longest time, wasn't able to distinguish between having an upset stomach and having her feelings hurt. Because, you know, when you have an upset stomach, you kind of feel yucky in around here. But if someone hurts your feelings, you also kind of feel yucky in around here. And it was very cute. What she would say whenever somebody hurt her feelings for a little while was, you gave me a stomach ache. Well, it wasn't really a stomach ache. Her feelings were hurt. But nonetheless, she doesn't yet have the introspective vocabulary developed. Now, of course, she was only 4 years old, but the point is that lots of people don't ever really develop a very sophisticated introspective vocabulary, and so they're never going to be, from a first-person perspective, a very good source of data for us to be scientific here. So for these reasons, the fact that people can lie, that people can be embarrassed and shy and so forth, and just poor in reporting the basic data, the behaviorists wanted to argue first-person reports are not a possible solution, so we're then back to the problem. In principle, everything that's going on in B is unobservable, but scientific method says that we can only include observational data in our science, so psychology therefore is dead in the water. Or not.